Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video.
Hi, everyone. I'll try my best to give you all an unbiased perspective of this situation. If you guys need anything else, please do let me know and I'll post an update giving additional information. Well, to start this off, I got married to my wife, Emily, 3 years after my then wife passed away. I have a daughter, Julia, and Emily brought her son, Brandon, into the picture. Brandon was always the type of kid to take jokes too far, and my daughter Julia, on the other hand, is and was the quiet, shy, and introverted kid. The fact that they got into an argument the very first day they met said a lot about how their relationship was going to be. I obviously wasn't going to give up on my daughter and Brandon. I wanted them to have a bond. Of course, though, as days passed by, it was very obvious to me that there was going to be no bond, no friendship. My aim then became to try to get them to at least be cordial towards each other. That too, obviously, was a fail. As Brandon grew older, his bullying tendencies grew, and it seemed like everything Julia did was a joke to him. Emily absolutely refused to parent Brandon, and every effort that I put into it was met by her telling me not to become a dad figure to Brandon. This obviously encouraged Brandon to keep being toxic towards my daughter. As years passed by, I just could sense my daughter starting to resent all of this. I could sense a distance forming between us. No amount of therapy helped any of this. I knew I had to do something because even I was reaching my breaking point, and it didn't take Brandon to get me to my worst. It all started when Julia came home bawling her eyes out. I work remotely, so I'm the first person to greet the children. The moment I saw Julia, my heart broke for her. I sat her down and tried to ask her questions. Julia was very hesitant, telling me that she didn't want to create a rift between Emily and me. Hearing that broke my heart even more. I comforted her as much as I could, and eventually she opened up to me and confessed to me about all that happened that day at school. Poor Julia. Through her tears, she told me all about how Brandon stole a very important project of hers that carried about 15% of her grade in a class that would impact her college application before she left for school. She didn't realize what had happened until the time came to submit the assignment. Of course, the professor didn't hear any of her excuses and told her that she'd lose her grade. This devastated Julia, and she cried the entire day, wondering where her project was. And then, at the end of the day, Brandon stopped Julia behind, along with his friends, and ripped apart her project outside her school campus. Julia began crying to me even more as she recalled the incident. Brandon wasn't home when she confessed this to me. He was out like usual, returning home with his mom after hanging out with his friends all day and being at football practice. I immediately knew what I had to do from there onwards. It hadn't been too long since school ended and Julia returned home. I knew the school staff probably would be present, so I and Julia drove over to the school. I took her to the teacher whose project she was supposed to submit and talked to her about it. She suggested that we go to the principal, and that's what we did. The principal was thankfully very understanding and helpful and also very mad. Understandably so, because Brandon already had a lot of reports piling up against him. The principal thanked us and, I assume, called Emily after because the moment she and Brandon entered the house during the evening, it was a whole shit show. Everyone began arguing with each other. Julia stood up for herself and argued with Brandon. It was a horrible night, but we sort of just knew where it was leading. To Brandon getting expelled from school. I knew the outcome of this wasn't going to be pretty, but For it to be so immature and just plain nasty, I truly was out of words. It was the very next day. The kids went to school as usual, except for the fact that Emily drove Brandon over to meet the principal. That is when I guess he was told that he was being expelled from school. Emily was not happy. She began blowing up my phone from the moment she found out. She went on calling, and her anger went through the roof as she realized I wasn't home when she returned with Brandon. She called me approximately 30 times before she went radio silent. I knew something was brewing from there onward. I started getting warnings on home security apps and was mortified when I opened the footage and saw Emily ripping apart Julie's very expensive books into the fire pit she created. The view was horrifying because it was at that moment I realized that this woman was out of her mind. The way she and Brandon were laughing sent shivers down my spine. I just knew I had to call the cops, and thankfully, they were just in time to catch Emily red-handed. I saw it all go down in real time, just the way Emily's reaction changed from happy to shocked to scared. She started rambling and how it's all my fault and how I deserve this for ruining Brandon's life because I resented him. The cops asked me if I wanted to press charges. I told them I needed time to think about it, but told them that I needed their help to get her out of my house. Emily was fuming as she packed up her and her son's things and left. I haven't talked to her ever since, but everyone around me is making sure that I don't miss out on her toxic behavior. Everyone keeps blaming me because, like I said, I'm the one at fault for ruining Brandon's life. I'm trying my best to think rationally here. I'm trying my best to be here for Julia, who is obviously heartbroken over her books, but I just can't figure out how I might be the a-hole here. So I leave it up to you guys now. AITA? This isn't much of an update, but just an edit since a lot of you were asking me for more context on my relationship with Emily and our family dynamic, so here it is. It was pretty obvious from the get-go Emily wasn't all that interested to parent my daughter, and honestly, it was a good thing because Julia, who was 12 at that time, was already set on the fact that she'd never see Emily as a parental figure. I didn't want her to do so either. So we came to this unspoken agreement that Emily wouldn't try to parent Julia and I wouldn't try to parent Brandon, and it all worked initially. It wasn't all sunflowers and sunshine, but it worked. Eventually, though, things started tumbling down because we all know that not parenting the kids doesn't mean that there wouldn't be moments where I'd have to be stern with the kids. Emily didn't like this at all. Brandon and Julia were of the same age, and when Emily moved into my house, she enrolled Brandon in the same public school as my daughter. So whenever I tried to correct Brandon over something he did, Emily and I got into this huge argument. It was truly a mess of a relationship, and from reading your guys' comments, I know I have to improve upon a lot. I'm trying to get the money back from Emily. I've talked to her and my in-laws about it all. I guess they're now mad at her because she half-assed the situation. They had no idea about the books and why Brandon was expelled from school. They've invited me over to their place tomorrow to talk. I'll be going there alone. Let's see how things go. I visited my in-laws today and things were okay. I wouldn't say too good, but not too bad either. We all sat down, and my very sweet mother-in-law got me snacks and a cup of coffee. Emily was obviously still angry, and Brandon had the same expression as his mom. My father-in-law started off by apologizing to me for everything Brandon put me through, and I told them instantly that I really didn't want an apology from them. I made it clear to them that they were absolutely not in the wrong, but that it was Emily and Brandon that need to apologize to Julia. My father-in-law just shot Brandon and Emily a look after that, and they came up with the fakest apologies they could come up with. They promised that they would apologize to Julia as well, of course. We're yet to see that coming. My father-in-law then handed me a check with a huge amount of money. I was completely shocked because the amount of money signed there went way beyond how much it would have cost to replace the books. That is when he told me that it was a portion of Brandon's college fund that I could use to cover Julia's college expenses. Emily tried so hard to fight that upon hearing this, and my father-in-law simply just told her that she should first focus on getting her son to pass high school, which kind of just made me laugh on the inside. Well, after that, I just thanked him and he apologized to me one last time, and we went our separate ways. I've never been extremely close to my in-laws, but I've known that my father-in-law is a good man from his heart, but I honestly didn't expect his kindness to be so much that I'd be left out of words. I truly hope Julia and I can put this money towards good use. Hello, everyone. A lot of you guys were asking for a final update, so here it is. I ended up filing for divorce from Emily. It was a no-brainer after I saw the way she was acting. Julia and I decided to get ourselves enrolled in therapy, both individual and family, and honestly, although it's been just a couple of months, I can see a lot of changes in Julia. She seems a lot more bubbly, open, and happy. Makes me wonder just how different she would have been if I didn't marry Emily. Yes, I know it's wrong to be so guilty over things that you can't undo, but I can't help it. I hope for it to fade away someday, though. Julia and I have brought all the books she lost, but also I helped her add some more books to her collection. She seems very happy with it all. As for Emily and Brandon, they both are moving cities and trying to get Brandon into another school. Apparently, my father-in-law didn't let them live in his house any longer. You guys are really right. My father-in-law indeed is a very admirable man, and honestly, I hope I can be as strong as him one day, hopefully. But that's all I have for you guys. Thanks, Reddit. NTA, Emily is crazy. You should have divorced her the moment her son began harassing your daughter. I'm surprised, glad, your daughter wants a relationship with you after you let her go through so much. Also, kudos to the father-in-law. He's truly the MVP here. NTA, you were very late, but I'm glad you stood up for poor Julia. Poor girl probably needs so much therapy. I really hope you've learnt your lesson and don't let her go through something like this again just because you want to be in a relationship. I, 23 female, have been dating my fiancé, 35, for 2 years. We recently got engaged. We both agreed to be child-free. I haven't met much of his family. He claimed he didn't want to introduce me until we were serious. This weekend, he invited me to his sister's baby welcome party. She has the baby a few weeks ago, and this is a party for everyone to meet the baby. Everything was going fine, and I was getting along well with his family. All the women in the family were taking turns dealing with the baby when he cried. I didn't because I have never so much as held a baby and would have no idea how to calm one down. The men went outside to have cigars, and one of his cousins asked me why I wasn't helping with the baby, and I was honest that I had no baby experience. His mom laughed and said that I should learn now because she expected a lot of grandbabies, and she knows how badly my fiancé wants a big family. I was surprised. I told her we plan on being child-free. His mom kind of rolled her eyes and changed the subject. I pulled my fiancé aside and asked him what that was about. He said we would talk about it later, but I pressed and he admitted I was young and he figured I would grow out of not wanting children. I was pissed, but didn't want to make a scene at his sister's party, so I told him I was going to the bathroom to cool down instead. I walked a few blocks away, got an Uber, and went home. He blew up my phone for being rude and leaving, how I need to come back and apologize. He took a serious step introducing me to his family, and I blew it. I felt terrible, so I sent his sister a Facebook message because I don't have her number, saying I was sorry for leaving abruptly, but I felt sick and went home. She answered a few hours later saying it was NP and she was happy to have met me and can't wait to get to know me better. This was yesterday. I texted my fiance this morning that I wanted to talk about the children's issue, but he sent me one text calling me immature, and I haven't heard from him since. Now I feel like I should have just stayed and held my tongue until we left, especially since his sister was so nice. NTA, let me get this straight. When you were 21, you started dating a 33-year-old man. You told him you were child-free, and he lied to you, planning to get you to change your mind. When you discovered this lie, you left his family vent rather than cause a scene. His response to your mature decision was to berate and belittle you, and then give you the silent treatment. Leave this man now. He is highly manipulative and cannot be trusted. I wouldn't be surprised if he sabotaged your birth control to try to trap you with an unwanted pregnancy. NTA, but you should take some time to examine the fact that your fiancé, who is 12 years older than you, doesn't take you seriously. He told you that he believes you are too young to know what you want and make decisions that affect your life. So I got to question why he feels like you should consent to marriage. You can either feel like people who are over a decade younger than you are immature, or you can marry people who are over a decade younger than you. You can't do both. I read medical records for a living, including imaging, physical therapy notes, neurologist visits, etc. I work side by side with doctors and psychiatrists and have for 13 years. I have a friend whose wife suddenly became disabled by back pain 3 months after he married her. One day she was active and happy. The next day she was totally debilitated and spends most of each day in bed. She did not suffer an injury. Background: his last wife became disabled and he supported her for years. Wife number 2 knows this. I asked to see her imaging and was surprised at what I saw. I told her, "This doesn't explain your pain." In his reports, her doctor described her as having a heightened response to pain and said there was nothing more he could do for her. My friend's life is ruined. She can't work, and he can't support them both on his retirement benefits, so he's had to go back to work. At home, he has to massage her and comfort her and do all the housework, shopping, etc. He has no time to himself, can't leave her unattended, and can't bring her with him. She has no insurance, but she's covered by his now that they're married. He pays all the co-pays. Even before this, she said she couldn't work because of COVID, because of age discrimination, because there were no jobs that fit her skill set, because jobs she was overqualified for paid too little, etc. She talked about how she couldn't work in every conversation I had with her. I've tried asking him leading questions like, has her doctor discussed anxiety's impact on pain? And what's her doctor's plan? Surgery? No. Physical therapy? Didn't help. Opiates? She won't take them. NSAIDs? She can't take them. TENS? Unit? Didn't help. Acupuncture? Didn't help. His answer? They don't know what's causing the pain. So they don't know what to do. This is code for the etiology is not physical. If there's a possible physical reason for the pain, a doctor will explain and address it. I've told him that in all my years, I've never seen this level of suffering from a benign condition like hers. I keep hoping he'll put the pieces together. She needs counseling. She needs to see a pain specialist. She's got a host of psychological problems. Depression and bulimia are two, she'll admit. She appears to have features of a personality disorder or two. She has no friends, and her family barely speaks to her. This is a psychological issue. I can sit my friend down and explain what the imaging and exams mean, including dermatomes and objective signs of impairment like reflexes, impingement tests, strength tests, and EMGs. Should I? He's a very smart man. He seems to be almost willfully obtuse about this. Maybe he's not ready to know, doesn't want to know. Maybe I should stay out of it. Okay, it's 4 p.m. PST, and I'm done reading or replying to this thread. IWBTA and IATA, thanks to those who responded civilly. I learned a lot. YTA for playing doctor. You are unqualified to diagnose anyone at any time for any reason. You obviously dislike your friend's wife and believe she's faking. You think the wife is a lazy loafer and your friend is being manipulated into supporting her. None of this is any of your business. You don't know what you're talking about. You are cloaking your distaste for the wife by throwing around medical terms you learned from a desk job looking at patient records. What would be the outcome if you told your friend, in my unqualified opinion, your wife is a lying faker and you are a sucker and a chump for working like a dog so she can lay around in bed all day? YTA and then some. Are you a radiologist or other type of physician? I'm fully capable of interpreting radiographs, but I don't because I'm not licensed to do so. Willing to bet you aren't either. Have you also consulted other testing in your quest to disvalue this woman? Blood work, psychiatric evaluations, advanced imaging, or are you basing all this solely on some lumbar x-rays? I suffered debilitating pain for years and my life was hell because of a-holes like you. I was later diagnosed with lupus, which explained every damn symptom I ever had. You're being a nosy, meddling prick and you need to drop this now.